Check 1 2. Testing audio. Check 1 2.
Who's moderating?
Suki, it's Tammy. Can one of you come down here?
Good morning, Councillor Fortini checking in.
Hi, Councillor Fortini, we can hear you.
Thank you.
Testing audio. Check 1, 2, 3.
Good morning, everyone. As we begin today's meeting, we would like to acknowledge that we are gathering here today on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and before them, the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Huron, and the Wendat. We also acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and other global Indigenous people that now call Brampton their home. We are honored to live, work, and enjoy this land. Good morning and welcome to our meeting of Brampton's Committee of Council. I'll ask the clerk to do a roll call.
Through Chair, everybody is present today. Councillor Fortini has joined us online, with the exception of Councillor Power and Councillor Tour, who may be joining us shortly.
Thank you very much. Does any member wish to add a business item to today's meeting? I see a list. Councillor Paleshi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I actually have 3 items that I'd like to add. I think they're easy enough, though. One is a advocacy motion for a third hospital in Brampton. The next is development charges for office, which I need to find out from our city solicitor, because last time we talked about TCs, I think it was in camera discussion that we were kind of talking about, so I need to just double check and make sure that that's public and not an in-camera discussion. And then the third is the council leave of absence discussion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Paleshi. Next, I have Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, I'd just like to add a discussion item around towing cars during winter maintenance.
Tow them all.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And I'd also like to add a discussion item for parking around masjids during the month of Ramadan. Please. I have a motion moved by Councillor Paleshi to approve the agenda, but beforehand, I'll just ask if we need to go over any other additional items, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Chair, there was no revisions to be published. However, the Government Relations Matters is able to be published today to be part of the public record. And 6.6 extra delegation, Sylvia Roberts, has been added to the agenda.
Very good, thank you. Motion moved by Councillor Paleshi to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor, any opposed? That carries. Do any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act or any matter to be considered on today's agenda? I see none, so I'll have the clerk note for the meeting minutes. Committee, as part of our consent motion process, I will read each agenda item that is subject to the consent motion, and any member may verbally identify the item to be held for debate during the meeting. Any item not held for debate will be considered as part of the consent motion and voted on for approval. I'll begin by reading the relevant agenda items, and members can identify any items that are to be held for debate. Item 7.1, a staff update on government relation matters, is in consent. 8.2.1, a staff report requests to begin procurement, Steeles Avenue corridor. We'll hold that one for the delegation, correct, Madam Clerk? Item 8.2.2, a staff report on the Hazel McCallion Line project update, in consent. Item 8.3.1, the minutes of the Environment Advisory Committee for February 4, consent. Item 8.3.2, the minutes of the Brampton School Traffic Safety Council February 6, consent. Item 8.4.1, correspondence from Toronto and Area Road Builders Association, request for policy changes regarding recycled crushed aggregate, in consent. Item 9.2.1, a staff report on urban community hubs, project updates, and next steps for Ward 3, in consent. Item 10.2.1, a staff report on Class C refreshment vehicles, food trucks in the current environment, in consent. Item 10.2.2, a staff report, SOP overview for parking and property standard violations, in consent. Item 10.2.3, a staff report on election sign enforcement, in consent. Item 10.2.4, staff report on the 2026 municipal election voting methods, in consent. Item 11.2.1, we are holding for delegation. Item 12.2.1, a staff report on bylaw to establish tax ratios for 2025. In consent. Item 12.2.2, a staff report update to the reservist leave policy, HRM 220. Consent. Item 12.2.3, a staff report request to begin procurement for landline telecommunication products and services. In consent. Item 12.2.4, staff report agreements executed by administrative authority for October 1, 2024 to December 31, 2024. In consent. Item 12.2.5 is staff report property interest to be expropriated for the downtown Brampton Flood Protection Project at 53 Church Street, Brampton, Ward 1. In consent. Item 12.3.1, the minutes of the Brampton Women's Advisory Committee for January 16. In consent. Item 13.1, our referred matters list. That is in consent. Item 15.1, closed report on operating agreements. In consent. Item 15.2, closed session report, applicant tracking system. In consent. And I'll ask the clerk now to summarize the items to be included on the consent motion for approval.
Through you, Chair, the following items will be included on the consent motion. 7.1, Government Relations Matters. 8.2.2, Staff Report Hazel McCallion Line Project Update. 8.3.1, Minutes of the Environmental Advisory Committee. 8.3.2, Minutes, School Traffic Safety Council. 8.4.1, Correspondence from Toronto and Area Road Builders Association. 9.2.1, Staff Report, Urban Community Hubs. 10.2.1, Staff Report, Class C Refreshment Vehicles. 10.2.2, Staff Report, SOP Overview for Parking and Property Standards Violations. 10.2.3, Staff Report, Election Sign Enforcement. 10.2.4, Staff Report, 2026 Municipal Election Voting Methods. 12.2.1, Staff Report, Bylaw to Establish Tax Ratios. 12.2.2, Staff Report, Update to Reservist Leave Policy. 12.2.3, Staff Report, Request to begin procurement for landline telecommunications. 12.2.4, Staff Report, Agreements executed by Administrative Authority, October to December 31st, 2024. 12.2.5, Staff Report, Property Interest to be expropriated for the Downtown Brampton Flood Protection Project. 12.3.1, Minutes, Brampton Women's Advisory Committee. 13.1, Referred Matters List. 15.1, Closed Report Operating Agreement. And 15.2, Closed Report Applicant Tracking System.
A very long list. Thank
Very
you
long
very
list.
much, Madam Clerk. I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Singh to approve the consent motion. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Next, we'll move on to delegations. Delegation 6.1, a delegation from Fardar Khan, the program manager for the Brampton Venture Zone by TMU, in regards to an update on various Brampton Venture Zone initiatives for 2025. Welcome, Mr. Khan. You have up to 5 minutes. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, council members. Thank you, Mayor. We're excited to be here. Before I begin, I wanted to just request if I can have an additional minute or two, because we have two other folks joining us.
So moved by Councillor Paleshi. Any opposed? That carries. Please.
Thank you. My name is Fardan Khan. I am the interim director here at the Brampton Venture Zone. Today's update is really meant to be giving you a look into the year ahead for the Brampton Venture Zone. We're excited to have some new initiatives, new programming. So if I can move on to the next slide. Perfect. So if you recall, we are a nonprofit incubator partnered with TMU and the City of Brampton. Our whole purpose is to foster and grow startup activity within the City of Brampton, and we do this in a couple of ways. So if I can go to the next slide, we have 3 core programming that we do throughout the year. This is our BVZ launch program. This is towards MVP ready stage companies that are ready to do business and come to Brampton in this region. Our second is the Brampton Innovator Program, which is somewhat of a revival of an old program. This is very much meant for Brampton residents, Peel residents who are at the ideation stage, who may not have the full capacity to launch a business, but are interested in learning the entrepreneurship principles and also meeting like-minded people. So that's a new initiative that we're launching later this year. And then lastly, it's the BVX Fest that we have. It's our annual Tech Fest, which we hold each year. It's to celebrate the Innovation District and the common wins that everyone is working towards. So for the launch program, we help in a couple of different ways. So this year we took or focused in MedTech and Health Tech. That's our focus, our sector of focus. We've taken in 9 companies, and 2 of which you'll hear from today. And then we help them in a couple of ways. So we help them either via one-on-one, EIRs, deep dives, content being delivered to them, some funding, and also access to vetted talent. This is all to help them grow to their focused goals that they have, and each company has different set of outcomes that they want to achieve. Next slide. And secondly, this is the new cohort. As you can see, we have 9 companies ranging from everything to compression apparel all the way to medical devices. It encompasses a host of different range of medtech and health tech devices and software, digital health. And so 2 of which you'll hear from today is MedMelanin and MedGenius. They're online. I think Neelam is online, so she'll be speaking virtually. And then if you go to the next slide, I'll talk about very quickly the Brampton Innovator Program. As I mentioned, this is geared towards very much grassroots, based in Brampton, early stage entrepreneurs. And this will be an in-person boot camp style event that we'll have for a couple of weeks in June. As you can see, start date is May 30th, and then the end date is July 30th. I guess our request here is that just help us spread the word with this and get local residents excited about the work we'll be doing. And if you go to the next slide, I'll lastly talk about the Brampton Venture Expo. The key difference here that we're doing this year is our date of the event. So usually we've done this event in July in peak summer, but this year we're trying something new, and we're going to be doing it just before fall. A couple of reasons for that, but the main reason is that we'd get a lot of out-of-office responses in the summer and a lot of people traveling. So the feedback we got was either do it earlier slightly or do it a little bit later so we get more people coming into the event. And so that'll be, again, at our venue, Rose Theater. We're excited to host again and work with the Brampton Innovation District partners. Next slide, please. And if you recall, last year was our biggest event to date. We were very close to breaking some fire code regulations, but we'll try to do something to that scale again this year. And again, we're looking for help with getting partners involved with this event, whether it's corporate, talent, students. We want to showcase the exciting stuff that's happening in Brampton in this annual Tech Fest. With that said, I'll just summarize our year. So if you go to the next slide, this is what our year looks like. Again, the 3 pillars with Launch, Innovator Program, and the BVX Fest. With Launch, we're trying to attract talent, attract startups. With the Innovator Program, we're trying to foster talent, local talent. And then lastly, with our BVX Fest, we want to engage the local community. So those are our 3 pillars and 3 big programming events for the year. And with that, I'll hand it off to Yvonne from MedMelanin to talk about her business.
Good morning, everyone. Before I get started, maybe I'll ask to go to the next slide quickly. I want to introduce you to a good friend of mine. One more slide. Yes, fantastic. Okay, so I want to introduce you to a friend of mine. Meet Janice. I have known her for over 25 years. She's lived in Brampton for well over 15. And in 2021, she called me and told me how she had gone to the doctor 6 times and was misdiagnosed 3 times. Now, at the time in which she called, she told me that she had been accused of wanting drugs. Now, she was actually able to get a diagnosis because she has a background in pharmacology, and her twin sister was a doctor. But I kept thinking of why this kept happening and the amount of people that didn't have access to that resource. And so I connected with over 300 patients and found that the problem was much bigger in scale than I could have ever imagined. in which women are 30 times more likely to be misdiagnosed than men. And then when we look at specific demographics, Black women are 75% more likely to die as a result of childbirth. And this became a question that we had to get confirmation from with physicians to really understand the depth of the problem. And so we started MedMelanin, a telehealth platform designed to reduce the rate of misdiagnosis for women of color, improve their consult experience, and teach women to be the best advocates they can be as they navigate the healthcare journey. Next slide, please. So we are actually working with Pilots Partners. Our platform is about to be launched. We're going through regulatory right now, and we are asking for your support to connect us with local clinics, primary care physicians that can really benefit from this, because we understand, regardless of disorder, that advocacy is a key part to get to the next stage. And we have a firm belief that the doctors are the medical experts, but the patients are the CEOs of their body, and we want to come together to help solve the problem. And we've been able to connect with a few partners in doing that, one of which is BBC, so we're very grateful. And yeah, it's a little bit about us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yvonne and Fardan. I do have a speaker on my board, Deputy Mayor Singh.
Just to ask, are you done, or do you have a
There should be Neelam online.
Yeah,
Who will
just
go
one more
next.
quickly.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. My name is Neelam. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called MedGenius. And I'd like to take just a couple minutes to tell you about the problem that we are trying to solve. So we know always that when it comes to prescribing medications, the goal is always to optimize efficacy and safety. The reality, however, is that response to medications varies significantly based on an individual genetic profile. And the result is that many do not receive the right medication at the right time, at the right dose, and this can lead to devastating consequences. Next slide, please. If we focus in on adverse drug reactions, we know that they are among the top 10 causes of death in North America. If we focus on Canada, the annual cost of adverse drug reactions here is estimated to be $13 billion, which is a gross underestimation since many are actually not reported to healthcare regulators. In the US, the direct and indirect cost of adverse events is approaching $950 billion, or more than 40% of healthcare spending. And if we just focus on treatment resistance, so for example, people taking an antidepressant, 20 to 60% of patients are not on the right medication, leading to increased healthcare burden. And next slide, please. And why is that? Well, the reality is how you respond to medication is linked to your genes. So if you look at that group in the middle, these are people who are taking the same medications. A number of people in this bottom right-hand corner are going to have the desired response. It works as it's supposed to do. But we're focused on the ones that either in yellow have no response, or quite seriously in the bottom left-hand corner have serious side effects. So next slide, please. So who is MedGenius? We are a software company. We take your genetic data, match it to the scientific evidence, and we are able to configure an output based on what you, the lab, the physician needs. So for example, if a physician only wants to see antidepressants because they're working in a mental health facility, our software can curate that. So our goal really is to be at the forefront of personalized medicine here in Canada, and we're very thankful to be part of the 2025 cohort with Brampton Venture Zone, and thank you to the City of Brampton.
Very good, and thank you, Neelam, online. I do have Deputy Mayor Singh.
Yeah, Neelam and Yvonne, thank you so much for coming. I was, Fardan as well, I was blown away when I got to attend the event, and the focus on the MedTech Center, section was remarkable, the sector. So thank you. It's nice to see things start coming together when we talk about MedTech, and I had the opportunity to talk to all the startups, and I was just blown away. The quality, the ideas, 90% is always execution, but the ideas were amazing, and you could see the potential in all of them. So thank you to the team at TMU, thank you to ECTEV, and thank you for all the support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Singh. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Santos to receive the delegation. All in favor? That carries. Our next delegation from Daniel Lacey, the Associate Vice President, CBRE, and Ross Wallace, Principal, Santis Health, item regarding item 11.2.1, the findings from the wet lab feasibility study. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me here today. Ross Wallace sends his regards. He was unfortunately tied up today on another matter, but I'm here presenting the findings from our lab report. We were engaged with the city and economic development teams in running a study to try and help figure out the needs or what composition could help create a more thriving life sciences environment here in Brampton, help support the med tech sector and the task force. If I may request an additional 5 minutes, there's lots of preamble, which I will go through as quickly as possible, but that would be great to help set the table.
Additional time has been moved by Deputy Mayor Singh. All in favor? That carries. Please proceed.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next slide, please. So in short, as I mentioned before, the purpose of the study was to try and help support economic development and growing the life sciences sector and doing some of the background research to figure out what are the key components that are required, who are we trying to support, how do we build the right type of facility that ensures, as Deputy Singh mentioned during the last segment with Brampton Venture Zone, the execution portion, right? It's great to have the ideas, but how do you move that forward through the path of commercialization? So we worked a two-pronged approach with Santis Health, running an ecosystem analysis, which involved stakeholder engagement sessions, where we spoke to a wide range of different constituents who are within the sector. And then, of course, the real estate analysis portion, which was headed up by myself at CBRE, to try and help figure out what needs to be built, where it should be built, and how it should be put together. Next slide, please. So the interviews, just in short, we completed 27 of them. There were 1 hour interviews, and we had 4 kind of prepackaged questions, but to be honest, we didn't necessarily let those prepackaged questions drive the conversation. If whom we were engaging had something relevant to kind of run on, we let that conversation kind of naturally flow. But those 4 questions were generally what we were looking to try and take out of any conversation individually. Next slide, please. This is the list of people we engage with. As you'll notice, they're both government officials, there's industry associations, they're academia, hospital, and commercial enterprise as well. So we engaged with, property owners as well on the real estate side. Next slide, please. So when it came to the real estate analysis, we had 2 separate areas that we were looking to diagnose. First was assessing the demand, who is looking to kind of occupy the lab space, and where would they be coming from, what type of space are they looking for, how viable is it, as well as the company's composition, where are they at in their kind of phases of commercialization. And then the location was another thing that the economic development team and city staff members really wanted to kind of focus on, is where should something like this be built, not only because of demand, but also industry clustering, which they've heard lots of, and transportation and accessibility, access to the workforce, partnerships, that sort of thing. Next slide, please. So the interviews that Santis and CBRE engaged with stakeholders on kind of produced 5 key insights. The first being that there's a general awareness of Brampton's advantages. However, it is insufficient and incomplete as a whole conversation. So there is some more that the city of Brampton can do to try and help spread the word and make sure that everybody's aware of what's happening here in Brampton. There's also, point number 2 was a critical mix, there is a critical mix in Brampton of anchor institutions to help support a thriving in Brampton of the life sciences sector. However, we would need to kind of work with Brampton and help you to strengthen those institutional ties, which create that clustering effect. Number 3 was that MedTech is the greatest area of opportunity when we look throughout the region. Some areas like biotechnology are really quite strong in downtown Toronto, and then you have other areas like radiopharmaceuticals, which are really strong down in Hamilton. But when you look at the medtech sector, a lot of people think Kitchener-Waterloo, but if you're here in the Toronto or Greater Toronto area, you don't necessarily want to go drive a couple hours down the highway to go to Kitchener-Waterloo. So Brampton has some momentum in the medtech sector. Some of the large commercial commercial companies that are here are already working in that sector and can help support. So we saw that as probably the greatest area for growth here. Point number 4 was the Ontario Life Sciences Strategy. Since we presented in early November, there has been more news on this front. Not only have they announced the Wet Labs program, which is about $5 million per project, $15 million total, but that initiative with the Ontario Life Sciences Strategy is very important to help support what we would be recommending to do here. And then in terms of number 5, that was just logical development sites. We isolated a few here in Brampton that we feel make a lot of sense. Next slide, please. So in terms of the general awareness, as mentioned, there's some work to be done to help create a little bit more awareness. We talked about that kind of Toronto, Kitchener-Waterloo corridor. This location here in Brampton does present a lot of benefits, not only because of its proximity to Toronto being much more, kind of palatable, but also just in terms of the momentum that we talked about earlier here in the medtech sector already. There is more affordable real estate here than in Toronto, so to be able to create some lab space that would be accessible and provide the suite of services that groups are looking for would be really beneficial and help attract some companies and more importantly, thrive from within the borders of Brampton. Significant political will does exist here in Brampton, which we are very encouraged by. We've had a lot of support. We'd like to also thank the city and economic development team members who helped put this project out, but also continue to drive it forward after our findings. The last thing, though, that we noted previously is just the uninformed greater marketplace around what Brampton has to offer. So that's something that we'd want to emphasize. Next slide, please. We talked about the critical mix of anchor institutions, and that's something that we want to kind of continue to harp on because of the fact that clustering is so important, and bringing academia and hospital research together helps to not only attract companies from outside, but more importantly, start companies from within Brampton. Much less likely that they're going to go anywhere if they're founded here within the city. So that's something that we really want to emphasize as being the kind of key component to building a really thriving ecosystem. We'll go to the next slide, please. Right now, we just heard from Brampton Venture Zone. They're doing great things, but it wouldn't take long to speak to them and each of their companies that are working within BVZ to identify the fact that this lab space is a need that many of their companies would love to have access to. Some of the companies that have actually been founded in and around Brampton would have loved to have stayed here. They were members at Brampton Venture Zone, but at the end of the day, they had to access the lab space and clinical research to help move their projects forward, and they've had to move out. So trying to create that environment here, have that lab space be accessible, would not only help to generate companies from within, but more importantly, retain them and attract companies from outside as well. Next slide, please. We talked about the Ontario Life Sciences Strategy. It's a very large $146 million plan, but some of that is really tailored towards helping to support the development of wet labs. Next slide, please. When it came to assessing the demand, we did initially think to ourselves, we're looking at the demand for lab space throughout the Greater Toronto Area. However, that's not the most important part. What we really identified through our stakeholder engagement is that the demand for lab space is already here in Brampton from not only the hospitals, but also the academics, the TMU, Algoma, for 2 examples, as well as Sheridan is expanding their science programming as well. Those are the type of anchor tenants that can help get a development off the ground, because you're not going to build something for a bunch of startups initially. You just want to have additional space for those startups to come and be part of that ecosystem. Next slide, please. We'll continue the next slide. Thank you. When it came to location, we looked at not only where the locations of the schools are, and as we know, Algoma and TMU are generally across that Queen Street corridor, but also the incubators, the ones that are helping to attract companies that can then utilize that lab space. They're also generally located in and around downtown Brampton. And then some of our other industry partners are scattered throughout the rest of the city. But because of the transportation access and those first two kind of key components, we really saw the Queen Street corridor, downtown Brampton, in front of William Osler Hospital, and then potentially in and around Bramall East Civic Center. Those are kind of the three locations generally that we saw as being the most strong and highest potential. Next slide, please. And next slide again. So this was just trying to give a bit of an idea of the composition of the type of facility that would create the right type of environment. At the bottom, you can see some of those larger academic and institutional players that if they were to be able to take a portion of a building and have research in laboratories ongoing, then you can start to add in pieces like the shared facility where you can bring in, Brampton Venture Zone and some of their partner companies, and then you may have some additional space on top of that. I wouldn't overbuild it at this stage. I would probably start smaller, but you want to make sure you have enough space not only for the institutional players, but those companies that you're looking to try and grow as well. Next slide, please. I tell you what, I'm just going to stop there because I see I'm out of time. These are some of the points. The presentation is, of course, available, but we just touch on a few of the recommendations, which are, of course, taking advantage of the funding, bringing those partnerships and industry players together, and making sure you provide some additional space for those third-party companies.
Thank you very much, and I think it would be appropriate if we also brought forward the report, item 11.2.1, as I go to my first speaker, Deputy Mayor Singh.
Thank you, Daniel. Really appreciate this. When we started the MedTech Task Force, I don't think anybody knew where it was going. It had a lot of stakeholders, like you identified. There was a feeling in the air with the academic institution of TMU coming online. We already had Sheridan and Algoma. All the pieces were there, but how it all fit together, I think this report helps to identify that. It felt like a big ship, and we're slowly steering it, and this helps give us some direction. So thank you to you and your team. Really happy with the outcome of the report. I quickly learned that, just for context, why there's so many stakeholders is this very complex field. Just as much as we may have medtech companies and it's an economic development exercise, it's also a land use exercise, which we learned quite quickly, and I see Councillor Pleshy on the board who will build on that. But it was also a land use exercise, so it's very important to get everybody together, including our industry organizations and MedTech Canada and everything. And I like where this is going in the sense, start small, fill a gap that in the GTA, your recommendation, and ironically, there's matching funding now, so the timing works out so conveniently, and it helps to give us direction. So I want to thank you and the team. We'll continue to build on this and continue to strive for MedTech excellence in Brampton. Is there any additional insights or anything else you would like to add? What do you see in the short term and in the long term related to MedTech in Brampton? Is there any gaps or pieces you think we could add still, or just keep going the way and slow and small wins?
I think the recommendation I would make is if you reach a point where you are really committed to building something, you've got some of those big anchor pieces in place. Trying to identify where you want it to go is, as you said, an exercise in and of itself. Yeah. And then additionally, what is that going to cost? Yeah. Now, of course, you can bring in private developers who could partner with the city and your institutions to try and get that facility built. But, in terms of identifying the costs, it's really difficult because are you building new on a undeveloped land site? Are you retrofitting an existing facility somewhere? There's quite a wide range of costs associated with all of it. And then, of course, what are you actually building? We talked about MedTech as being a big, strong kind of pillar of strength for the city of Brampton. MedTech space doesn't necessarily cost as much as wet lab space. That was one thing that I didn't cover at the beginning. It was a wet lab feasibility study to start, but truthfully, it kind of just became a lab study because you don't necessarily want to build a bunch of wet labs to accommodate biotechnology, which may not be looking to grow and start here in Brampton. continue with what is already working, and if it continues to grow, you may find other groups and other sectors kind of come around it. So medtech versus wet lab, chemistry lab, there's different costs.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong in my understanding, but what I think what was being recommended is start small. And having gone to the Brampton Venture Zone, I realize that's a critical gap, accessibility for startups as well. So I think we're addressing a critical gap, and it's not a high-risk strategy. So that's what I'm sort of hearing. And also the more emphasis on the dry lab versus the wet lab. So just wanted your commentary on that before I finish up.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is, just as they found out in Kitchener-Waterloo, they built out the Velocity Center with a minimal amount of wet lab space. Of course, it became some of the most popular space and highly subscribed. So, there really is a lot of programming that you'd want to do at the front end of this to make sure the first phase is built correctly. And then from there, if it grows, you can look at other phases to move companies into. That's, of course, the end goal is that they grow and hire and expand their research.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
One more.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Singh. Come back. I have questions from Councillor Qureshi, and just a reminder that the report is also before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess first, thank you for the study. A lot of information, a lot of, this goes back to when Mayor Brown and I, we visited Harvard to go to school there, unfortunately, and Boston College, and seeing the wet labs that they had, and it was just kind of that trigger for the need. And so I think hopefully that's kind of where it started, and it's evolving to where it is today. And I think this study is certainly warranted and helps us in the city of Brampton to move forward in what we're looking at for the attributes of life sciences. It does consider, the Kitchener-Waterloo corridor at TMU, the existing hospital locations. But one thing I did notice that the study, it doesn't highlight the new emerging growth areas like you were just referring to, in particular those around Heritage Heights, which feature many of the locations for intelligence noted in slide 5 of the presentation, but those being the transportation, accessibility, and proximity to a skilled workforce. So with the Heritage Heights secondary plan and the location for now an item on the agenda that talks about the third hospital, in that southwest quadrant of Mississauga Road and Bovaird, near the Highway 413, transportation corridor, or the transit hub on the Kitchener-Waterloo Innovation Corridor. I think there's a good opportunity strategically for the community and health services such as medical offices, medical research facilities, and the combined specifically for Heritage Heights and Mount Pleasant. So Heritage Heights secondary plan, Mount Pleasant, 52, whatever that piece that was pulled out of Heritage Heights, move it to Mount Pleasant. But the job target of 60,000 jobs by 2051, I think there's good opportunity for us to relook at or potentially look at. And this isn't taking away anything from any other part of the city, but I really want to be able to go to, put our best foot forward and have this area also included. Like that, you talk about building and the pricing between, building as in converting, this is that blank canvas, and potentially has everything else that is potentially needed for starting this off and getting it forward. So not really a question, but I would like to have followed up with some staff direction. I don't know if we need it in terms of a motion. I'll look to Marlon maybe or Steve. I really want to be able to direct staff to work with CRBE and the Santis Health to further consider the Heritage Heights, Mount Pleasant secondary plan areas as additional areas to protect for wet lab and related life sciences science uses, given their similarities for locational tributes to, as noted in the wet lab feasibility study report. And I think I'll look to Steve to let's potentially look at an opportunity for an interim control bylaw for a certain area of the Mount Pleasant Heritage Heights secondary plan around where the third hospital potentially is going to be going in our advocating for the third hospital. And maybe if you can talk a little bit about that, Steve.
Sure. Through the chair, through to you, to Councillor Peleshly. I don't believe we need a specific motion. We can just take that as direction and it'll be reflected in the minutes.
But if you're going to put it through an interim control bylaw, I would rather that come, let's start the conversation by directing staff to come back with an opportunity, but at any ICBL, I think it needs to be council's approval of that.
Yeah, so at this point in time, what I would do is recommend to council, we'll take this as direction, come back with a set of options, and interim control bylaw for that study being one of them, and then we could bake that into a motion.
Excellent. Okay, so I'll leave that as direction to staff, and no motion as of right now, but staff will come back with hopefully a staff report in terms of what an ICBL looks like in that area for, protect this area for the future opportunities for.
If I could just make one
100%.
stipulation, it's often a misconception. I'm from Oakville, and when the pandemic hit, I can't tell you how many farmers field owners in Oakville around Oakville's hospital in the north end called me and asked me about life sciences. The only thing I would state is that the most important part is that the hospital conducts research. If it's just a clinical hospital, you're not going to have that kind of clustering and ideation creation. So if it is a research hospital, I would definitely look strongly at it. If it's just a hospital that's seeing patients come in and out and they're not conducting research, I would say it's probably not the best site, but I'll leave that to further investigation.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Singh. Yeah. Deputy Mayor Singh.
And more land for medtech use is always a positive thing, and I'm happy you suggested CB area, they have the experience with this. And so I know in the immediate term, we've identified some corridors, but future growth is gonna be coming, and I'd love to see a medtech area in the city of Brampton and additional medtech uses. So it's a good thing to study and continue maybe the work we've done. So I look forward to that report and seeing what we could accomplish. So we kind of have like short-term goals, medium-term, and long-term. So more than happy, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Singh. So members of committee, we have the report before us, moved by Deputy Mayor Singh along with receipt for the delegation. All in favor, any opposed? That carries. Thank you. Our next delegation is from Gloria Berger, board member of the Friends of Historic Bovaird House, regarding the Historic Bovaird House agreement. Welcome, Gloria. You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
I have to change glasses. Sorry. Excuse me. Built in circa 1852, the building now known as Historic Bovaird House was sold to the city of Brampton by Mossy Bovaird in 1985. Since approximately 1991, a group of dedicated volunteers has taken an active role in promotion, education activities, and fundraising. Most significantly, the artifacts acquired by this group have allowed Historic Bovaird House to develop into the only building of historical significance owned by the city that is open to the public as a museum. From its inception, Friends of Historic Bovaird House, with input from city staff, have developed a mission statement plus goals and objectives. Mission statement. The Friends of Historic Bovaird will be made up of community-minded people who have an interest and or knowledge of the historical past of Brampton, with an excellent feel for the needs and wants of the community with regards to heritage buildings and programs, and who wish to enhance Bovaird House presence in the community. Goals. The goals of the Friends of Historic Bovaird House are to foster public awareness of the Bovaird House and its place in local Brampton history, to raise funds in order to furnish, maintain, and offset the operating costs of the house, to represent the time period of 1840 to 1900, to increase funds through membership, donation, and other means, and the Friends to educate the actual Friends themselves so they're aware of the historical aspects of Bovaird House in the time frame of 1840 to 1900. The objectives of the Friends of Historic Bovaird House, the Friends will host open houses and conduct tours of Bovaird House to support the use of Bovaird House for programs such as events of historical, cultural, and educational nature, to develop the land to encompass the historical theme of Bovaird House, to secure appropriate furnishings for the Bovaird House, to recruit new volunteers and to provide support and encouragement for existing volunteers on an ongoing basis, and to host and participate in special events. Fundraising activities at Historic Bavaria House. Bavaria House has a carriage craft shop, which has been a continuous source of income since it was established in 1997. Local crafters display their creations with a portion of the proceeds from sales going to the house. As well, the Friends offer for sale such items as an 1857 Bristow Fitzgerald map of Brampton and the 1859 Tremaine map of the Peel County books of historical relevance to Brampton. We also have Mossy's Tea Room, which has scheduled teas for the Friends have organized since 2002. This has become an extremely popular event with some guests booking a year in advance. In 2005, we initiated Desserts by Lamplight in late October, moved it to March, and then initiated the Loaf and Ladle the last Saturday in October. The Loaf and Ladle is a heritage meal from historic recipes of the 1800s. Each year, the Friends of Historic Bavaria House will have an open house and craft show where we have more than 400 visitors through the house in the two-day event. We also have, from time to time, host teas for organization and private individuals. Most recently, we hosted MPP Charmaine Williams and a delegation in early December. The house is open for tours to the public Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays from noon to 4 p.m. from mid-February to mid-December. As Brampton's only historical tourist attraction, we get many drop-in visitors. Although admission is free, we remind visitors that all donations are directed toward Historic Bavaria House Artifact Acquisition Fund. The Friends of Historic Bavaria House acquire antiques and artifacts in the period 1840 to 1900 in 4 different ways. Although the artifacts are acquired through the efforts of the Friends, the collection is the property of the City of Brampton. Over the years, the Friends have also added to the value of the property and have completed many projects to enhance the grounds. We would like to continue to do this good work and are looking for a way forward. Hopefully, this is a brief outline of who we are and what we have brought to the community at Historic Bavaria House property over the past 30 years will provide a little insight into all of the contributions the Friends have made. Please consider extending the February 28th deadline and allowing us to continue negotiating the operating agreement with the city that meets both our needs and gives back to the community. We look forward to hearing from you with a positive outcome for both the city and the continued operation of Historic Bavaria House for the citizens of Brampton.
Thank you very much, Gloria. I do have a speaker, Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Gloria, for coming in and all the work that you guys do at the Bavaria House. And I'm happy to receive the delegation.
Very good. Thank you very much. We have a motion moved by Councillor Keenan to receive the delegation. All in favor, any opposed? That carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is item 6.4, delegation from Donna Boucher, who is the chair, along with Kathy Corsetti, who is the co-chair, and Adrienne Franklin, secretary of Making Prom Happen, regarding the Making Prom Happen event, Turner Fenton High School on April 10th, 2025. Big shout out to you. Please go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Good morning, members of council, distinguished guests. This is my partner, Kathy. Unfortunately, Adrienne could not be here this morning, but we're happy to present Making Prom Happen. So I want you all to think about the average cost of prom for our students. It's much higher than you would think. The next slide, please. So the average cost of prom for a student is about $1,000. And when you compare that to the projected needs of a family of 4 for groceries at $1,400, it seems a little high, especially for most of the students in region of Peel. Next slide, please. So that's why we created Making Prom Happen. We make grad dreams come true for youth in Peel region, and we're excited to be here today. Next slide, please. So we'd like to introduce you to Making Prom Happen. Obviously tell you the importance of prom, which I'm sure you understand, how we work, and how we think that you can help us. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So our first event was May 2023. It was a last-minute event. We put it together in 6 weeks. We gathered over 300 dresses. approximately 30 volunteers, and we helped over 70 families that day. The lineup was around the building. It was really beautiful to see. So that was our first event. Next slide, please. Last year's event, our second event, oh my gosh, a little overwhelming. It was amazing. We had over 250 youth come. We had about 40 volunteers, and we were so grateful to have Bramalea Secondary School offer their space to us. So we had the cafeteria in the school. They were very welcoming and accommodating and helped us every step of the way. So yeah, over 250 youth we helped last year. Next slide, please. So we're back. This is our third year. We're so excited. We're at Turner Fenton Secondary School. This year they have given us all 3 gyms plus the cafeteria, so much bigger than last year. And it's on April 10th, 2025, so it's coming up very soon. I think it's under 50 days now, our countdown says. Next slide, please. So I think everyone understands the importance of prom for students. It helps them build self-esteem and confidence. There's an emotional and social significance that can't be matched by anything else that they will experience at high school. And it also creates lasting memories. We are hoping that through making prom happen, that we can make those lasting memories positive and a joyful moment for them. Next slide, please. So this is how we work. We do event promotions, letters and emails. Some of you may have received our emails. We deliver our flyers to the local schools. We send out press releases, social media campaigns. We do everything we possibly can to spread word. We gather donations. We have some wonderful people, about 10, that have offered to be drop-off locations in all of Peel. They're volunteers, and they store these dresses in their houses. This is one of them right here. Her house looks like a warehouse for prom wear. Last year, her husband in the basement where his TV is was doing this to be able to watch TV because there were dresses everywhere and suits. We educate all our volunteers on how to sort and tag the clothing. We do a lot of social media requests for donations. And we also have a really cool Amazon wish list, which was really successful last year. So once it happens, our event comes, so we rent a U-Haul truck in the morning, and we drive to all of our drop-off locations, and we pick up all of the donations, and we deliver them to the school. And within about 2 hours, we have a pop-up shop for students. They come in. It looks like a giant Value Village. Students will walk in, they will register, and then they're welcome to go and shop for their outfit. We ask them to take one outfit, so it might be a dress, shoes, a bag, some jewelry. Sometimes we have makeup, all different kinds of things. Last year for the guys, we had bow ties, fancy socks, pocket squares, suits, things like that. And then when they're finished, they go to checkout, just like they would in a store. The only difference is there's no money. They don't have to pay anything. It's all free. And the reason why we do checkout is we want to make sure that they received something. And if they didn't receive something, then we try to make sure that they do. Acknowledging Councillor Rod Power last year, we had a young man who was about 6'5". He did not fit into any of our suits. Councillor Power was so kind, and he actually purchased him a brand new suit for prom. We have registrations on our website, although we do take walk-ins. We allow walk-ins as space permits so that it's not too crowded and crazy in there. Next slide, please. Oh, I kind of went ahead on that one, so I'll start halfway. We end up with about 40 to 50 volunteers at our event. They will be personal shoppers. They might be working at the dressing rooms. I have to tell you, the dressing rooms is the most emotional place to work on that day. I only lasted for 10 minutes, and I had to excuse myself because I got emotional. Watching these kids come out of the change rooms wearing these outfits that they didn't think that they would ever be able to afford is very moving, very rewarding. It's why we do it. Getting emotional again, we'll move on. Yeah, so like I said, it's just like a store, only there's no money. We treat everyone with dignity. They come in, they choose their outfits, and if they don't get one, we try to find one. Next slide, please. So we're working to build partnerships with the community. It's something that we're hoping that you can help us with, raising awareness and spreading the word. Next slide. Next slide. We have a lot of volunteers that come and help us. They all find it very rewarding. We're one of them. As you can see, we have some quotes from our volunteers there. In the effort of time, I'm going to keep going. So next slide, please.
So how can you help us? Well, first of all, our main thing is awareness. We want everyone to, if you can share our flyer on your website, on your newsletter, that's very helpful. If you have donations, we're happy to come and either arrange a pickup or we have drop-off locations. We're always short on curvy size dresses. There's lots of size zeros, but this isn't a size zero world. So we're always looking for curvy size dresses, and also we also do graduation for grade 8 boys, and it seems like grade 8 boys suits never show up, so that's another thing you can help us with. We also have students, as some of you are aware, in Caledon, who to come to Turner Fenton would be an hour drive, maybe both ways, I don't know. If they can get a car or come by transit. We had one social worker reach out to us asking if she could come and take some dresses to her school. That doesn't seem right. It seems like the student should be able to pick their own. So if any of you can make arrangements with your local schools, if help is needed for transportation, even if it's an Uber, I don't know, whatever you can do would be great. I mean, we would like to have a big bus going from school to school, but that's maybe another year and a lot more fundraising. Next slide, please.
Just a reminder, you're over time, but another minute, please.
Thank you.
Do you want to go to the next one? Yeah. Next slide, please. We'll just skip to the last. Next one. And next one. There's Councillor Power. This slide just before that, if you want to leave that one up, that's fine. Just before, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so, we've heard from students who said they never thought they would ever have a dress of their dreams. Boys last year who didn't know how to tie ties, and Councillor Power, who attended, was showing them how to tie ties. We're hoping a lot of you will attend, if not all of you, and if you have any support in any way, we'd be happy to accept any support you can give us. Thank you very much for hearing us out today.
Thank you very much. And I do have speakers. Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for coming in today. Doing this stuff for the youth or the people that need it is great. I know there's a lot of trials and tribulations out there, so any little bit helps. I definitely couldn't donate my suits to the guy that's 6'5", but I could probably let the grade 8 boys fit into my suits. Very happy to do whatever I can for this upcoming event. If I'd like to volunteer, and I'll put out as much as I can on the social media, and I don't know if staff could also throw some social media tiles out on the Brampton stuff just to raise awareness for what's happening, and I'm happy to do donations. I got lots of ties I can give you, so
Amazing.
anything I could do to help, great work that you're doing, and I'll be happy to be part of it. I'll have my staff reach out to you. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Santos.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. Just like my colleague, Councillor Keenan, I'm happy to support and participate on the day itself. I have tons of dresses I'd be happy to donate and let my team know as well. And we've got a very fine-looking commissioner bench here in the front. I'm sure they've got a lot of suits in their closets that perhaps they could donate
really nice
to those youth in need. And very happy to participate. My son actually attends Turner Fenton in grade 9, and I know I've attended a few events there, and I know that many of the students in that area are definitely in need of support and happy to be there for that. So I've already notified my team to let them know. I have someone on my staff who actually also part-time has a consignment store in Brampton, and I'm happy to work with her to see what we can do to support.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Santos. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Santos to receive the delegation. All in favor? That carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, members of the committee, we have a delegation from Ambassador Miriam Adam, Executive Director, Lafayette Momsaba, Chief Operations Officer, and Ambassador Don Matthias, Government Policy Advisor for Yes, Youth and Women Can, regarding the Brampton Swahili Heritage Month. Welcome. The floor is yours for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Latifat. So happy to be here representing Yes, Youth and Women Can, a community-based organization dedicated to empowering women and youth through education, economic development, social inclusion, and cultural preservation. At Yes, Youth and Women Can, we believe in fostering unity, representation, and opportunities for diverse communities. One of the ways we do this is through impactful programs that support cultural identity, environmental sustainability, and community tourism. It is within this framework that I present to you the Brampton Swahili Heritage Month, initiative under our Economic and Cultural Tourism Program. I would have invited Miriam here, but due to the issues with the airport right now, she could not make it. But we have President of Diaspora Youth. He's going to elaborate on the program and let you know how it aligns with our vision with the Brampton community.
Thank you very much, Latifa. All protocols observed, good morning. My name is Dismas Kibongei. I'm the president of the Diaspora Youth Network, and I'm here to represent Ambassador Maria Adams. So for this end, why this matters, it's because Brampton City is a place whereby everybody is welcomed to live, work, and make their living here. And Swahili as a language, it's being spoken by over 200 million people globally, and the countries where it's most spoken include Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Comoros, Somalia, and also other Asian countries, including Pakistani and Indian, those of Indian descent. At the same time, Canada, the city of Brampton, is one of them as well. The reason why the event will benefit the people of Brampton, number one, is because of a cultural appreciation and awareness. The event will highlight the rich traditions, art, and music history of Swahili-speaking people. Secondly, economic and business opportunities, whereby small businesses will be given an opportunity to showcase what they have. Education and youth engagement, community integration and social inclusion, tourism and city branding, environmental and sustainable development impact as well. Last but not least, I'd like to say thank you to the members of this council and also Abdikarim Omar, who's been able to support us in doing this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm Ambassador Don Matthias, and I also represent the African Union 6th region, who are also supporting what Ambassador Mariam is doing. And I would like just to emphasize on why the Council should consider this event. Number one, official recognition and proclamation would be very, very important. The UN has also recognized Swahili and has put July 7th at the official Swahili International Day. Assisting with venue and logistics to support the event would definitely go a very long way. Funding and financial support for the event will also be very much needed. Promotion materials and support will also be very good. Community and economic engagement involving Brampton businesses, which are definitely, as we all know, a lot of restaurants do definitely cook a lot of Swahili food. That's the Indians, the Pakistanis, the Somalis, who are definitely people who are also coming to be showcasing their business at that particular day. Encourage Brampton schools to include school heritage awareness programs, which some of our kids are definitely in the Brampton schools. Request the establishment of a long-term partnership between the Swahili Heritage and Brampton to make Swahili Heritage Month an annual event. Encourage cultural exchange and programs between Brampton and Swahili-speaking communities in Canada and abroad. We ask the city to consider Swahili heritage in libraries, museums, and cultural centers if they definitely could be able to do so. We request that the city can acknowledge Swahili as an important language spoken by Brampton, reflecting the growing African, Asian, Caribbean, Swahili-speaking communities. Lastly, I would also request if the council would be able to have a desk representative who at the city of Brampton who would be able to definitely lead these particular people of this community and the Swahili speaking community, as we have also said that a lot of the people in Brampton do speak Swahili. In conclusion, because of time, I conclude by saying that Brampton Heritage Month is not just an event. It's a movement towards a greater inclusion, economic empowerment, and cultural celebration. With your support, we can make this initiative Brampton Cornerstone and commemorate it as a diversity and community division progress. Thank you very much, and do appreciate for your time.
Thank you. I have speakers. Mayor Brown.
Well, thank you, and I'm happy to move receipt of this delegation and to say thank you for coming in today. It's very serendipitous that you're here today during Black History Month as we look at celebrating our mosaic. And we had a meeting of the Mayor's Black Advisory Council. One of the recommendations that came out of it was to have a Swahili Heritage Month. It was included in this year's budget that Council ratified. For our commemorative dates, we have $5,000 that is spent to host the event at City Hall. And Megan Guerra, who is the lead on helping work with the community to organize these celebrations, is right there. So afterwards, I want you to sit down and talk to her because we're really looking forward to this celebration this summer. It will be the first one in the country, I believe, in terms of a city hosting it. So it's going to be pretty special. And just looking at the newcomer numbers to Brampton, I would note that the number of Swahili new Canadians coming is growing. I think Kenya is one of the top source countries right now for new residents of our community. So it's beautiful to see, and it's going to be beautiful to celebrate the rich Swahili culture this summer for the first time in the city of Brampton.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brown. And I have motion of receipt by Mayor Brown. All in favor, any opposed? That carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next delegation is from Sylvia Roberts regarding item 8.2.1, request to begin procurement on the Steeles Avenue corridor and the transit master plan. Welcome, Sylvia.
Hello, my name is Sylvia Roberts. I'm a resident of Ward 3. I have been pushing for this project for quite some time. I checked my emails. I have multiple emails from dating back to 2020 advocating for exactly this specific project, because in Metrolinx's frequent rapid transit network, one of the main scoring items is a developable area, and based on the planning, we score very low because it tends to be catered towards very low density employment uses. So if we actually want to get something built along Steeles, we have to move forward on a project like this. This line has a number of very important features. When you consider the entire project scope, it will connect two different GO lines, which is the Milton line with Lisgar GO, and then we'll have Bramalea GO. The provincial government has put money into putting in tunnels under the 401 and 409, so they will be able to deliver 9 trains per hour in peak service, and even outside of peak service, a train every 10 minutes, even on the weekends, which is faster than the subways in many North American, which is more frequent than subways in many North American cities. It'll be faster to get from Bramalea GO to Union Station than from, say, Kipling Station on line 2, just because of how much faster the GO train runs. It will also connect 2 different provincial colleges, Humber College and Sheridan College. Then we have 2 different light rail lines that will connect at Steele, connecting to the Huron-Ontario Main Street LRT at Steeles, and the Finch West LRT, which hopefully opens this year. When you consider just how much transit capacity is going to be put through Bramley Go, they're going to have 3,000 parking spaces for a GO station that will have the capacity to move 10,000 people per hour. It doesn't take, you don't have to have gone and gotten a doctorate in mathematics to realize you can't put 10,000 people an hour through 3,000 parking spaces. You physically can't, people on the roads, there isn't a place to park. You have to focus on transit. Then we also have it being right next to the CN Intermodal facility, which is, I believe, the busiest one in the entire country. And then if you look further on Steeles west, past the borders of Brampton, we have CN looking at putting in a new massive intermodal facility in Milton. So in addition to this currently being one of the busiest freight corridors in the entire country, it's going to become even more critical. Plus, we have all the development going at Highway 10 in Steeles, and there is going to be huge travel demand. The Steeles corridor is effectively at maximum build-out. So we have this situation where, because of all of the freight usage, we cannot get rid of general purpose car lanes, and if you want to put in 2 additional lanes, that will become enormously expensive in terms of the expropriation, and if you were to widen it by 2 lanes, to put in, say, a BRT or surface running LRT, you could easily be running $500 million between all the expropriation on that, plus the cost for putting in a new bridge at the 410, then the CN overpass, then trying to figure out the bridge going underneath the rail corridor, which feeds into the CN intermodal facility. I would humbly request that the city can specifically include fully grade separated rail in the consideration. I've driven the entire distance of it, at least from Highway 10 to Humber College. If you look on the south side, there is actually sufficient space where the city would perhaps need to expropriate a grand total of 3 buildings. If you consider how Vancouver does SkyTrain, where you have the posts, because of how far the setbacks are, you wouldn't need to, most of the hydro corridor stuff is on the north side, also significantly reducing cost. I used to drive along Steeles a lot for work. I would average maybe 20 kilometers an hour. If you look at how elevated rail is going in Montreal, they average 50 kilometers an hour. So it's why should you take transit? Because it's literally, it's significantly faster than attempting to drive. And how many people like being stuck in 20-mile-per-hour Brampton traffic? So please consider that as an option in your long-term planning. And this is a very important project to move forward, despite how long it has taken to get to the pre-IBC stage. So hopefully we'll have something to show for it in 2040. Thank you. That's my delegation.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. And I see no speakers on the board, so I'll bring forward the report 8.2.1 and ask if any members have questions. I see none, so I will move for receipt of the delegation and referral of the suggestions from the delegation to staff and the report 8.2.1. Anyone opposed? So that carries. Next, we have item 8.3.3, discussion request from Councillor Keenan regarding towing during storms. We're now in the Public Works and Engineering section. Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just wanted to, first and foremost, I want to thank staff in Public Works for the amazing work in that snowstorm. Since I've been here, which isn't that long, when the winter rolls around, I get tons of complaints for things not being done appropriate. Last night, I was driving through downtown Brampton just at midnight, and I seen all the dump trucks getting filled up with snow to get it out of our downtown core. It was great to see that. Even though the snow has stopped, the work continues. So a big thank you to staff. I did have the opportunity, along with the deputy mayor, to go by the operations kind of headquarters where everything was being run out of, to see those staff working tirelessly and all the hours that they were putting in. So You know, as much as we see the trucks on the road, we don't really notice the people behind the scenes getting it all done. So kudos to the team in this big storm. You know, I didn't receive many complaints around the snow removal, but I got a lot of complaints about cars parked on the roads. I got lots of complaints about, you know, not only the vehicles being parked there that the plows couldn't get in, but it's a snowball effect. And then we come into the issue of, it's not that the staff weren't trying to, you know, deal with getting the cars off the road. What we found out was the tow truck response wasn't there for us. And that's kind of what this conversation is about, is how do we get that response? How do we make it where when we make a phone call that these cars are being moved? You could see by this snowfall, it was crazy important. You know, I think the mayor had shared some numbers with me earlier today. I think there was 46 requests made internally. Never mind the external requests that came in, and only a few of those cars were ended up being towed. So I just really think that we need to look at either the towing contract. You know, I believe it's coming up anyways, and you know, I really think that it's time that we, you know, if we're not getting a response for people that we have on the list, that they be removed from the list. We're looking for a response, and I think it has to come down with, you know, is it feasible? How much are they charging? I think everything needs to be looked at this point in order to get the, you know, the cars off the road and people understanding that we're really taking a serious stance when it comes to clearing our roads. So I see a massive list, and I'll let everybody speak to this because I know it's an issue for every single person, but I just really think that we need to get this kind of under wraps here, that in the next snow farm we're towing cars at a rapid pace because there's far too many. But again, thanks to staff for everything that you did in the snowfall. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Santos.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councillor Keenan, for adding this item. I spent a good chunk of my family day weekend responding to residents, and thank you again to the staff. A couple of things about this snowfall. It was quite unusual and quite excessive. Many municipalities across the entire province are dealing with the same things and same issues as we are, and thank goodness we hired more bylaw officers. We created the new loop system for proactive enforcement, and today we also passed a report that increases the fines for repeat offenders in relation to parking. So a lot of things already underway in terms of dealing with parking and other issues related to you know, illegal activity of parking on our streets. So thank you, bylaw enforcement. And then to the Public Works team, my gosh, you had literally quite mountains of snow to deal with and still to deal with now. And one of the biggest complaints I received from residents was cars are not being towed. And I was out actually in the neighborhoods, various neighborhoods in Brampton on the weekend, and literally saw cars encased in snow, like encased in snow on the roads, and wondering to myself, why are these things not being towed? And, you know, with Councillor Keenan and with Director Rob Higgs and talking to Peter, we found out that in fact, these tow truck companies who are currently contracted with the city are refusing jobs and not towing the cars on the road in order for the plows to get through. So thank you, Councillor Keenan, for bringing this forward. I'm assuming that we're going to be passing a motion directing staff to go on and look at new companies or a new contract, very specifically based on the service we expect and the service that our residents expect. Because when a car illegally parks there, and I know some cars, because I'm getting responses from bylaw enforcement escalation staff as we speak, some of these cars were ticketed 4 times and were slated to be towed, but then the tow companies are refusing to actually tow them. So when we put together this new RFP or contract for the tow truck companies that will, in the future, work with the city, let's make sure that it's to our expectations. At the end of the day, it's the person who's illegally parked on the road who has to pay for that tow. It's not the property taxpayer, but certainly it's a huge headache when the plow can't get through. So if staff need a motion, then I'm sure Councillor Keenan and I are happy to bring it forward. If you don't, if you could take that as direction, that would be great as well. One final thing about the towing and cars is can we look into the possibility of, during the snowfall, having a like a license plate reader camera that follows as part of the process with the snow plow? Is that a possibility to look into? I know we're looking at license plate cameras, but can we proactively just go out there and read the license plates of all those cars that are currently parked in the way of the snow plow? Is that possible to look into?
Sure. Through the chair to Councillor Santos, we can certainly take that as direction to investigate technologies that are available to us and look at implementing a pilot project to test that technology.
Awesome. And I think that we should consider, when we have a new tow truck company in place that meets our expectations for service, that we are even more that we are not lenient, that we are even more aggressive in getting those cars off the road. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Santos. Councillor Pelletier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been trying to look at license plates while I've been, and just everything is covered. So we're not going to be able to take pictures of plates. Never did I actually think that when I started asking for tow trucks to be part of the snow clearing efforts, did I ever think that they were going to refuse work. But then I started kind of looking into it a little bit more. Our grasp on tow trucks in the city of Brampton was taken away from us by the province. We no more, we don't license them anymore. There is a different day and age with tow trucks when after the province took them over to before, when we actually had some kind of authoritative power over tow trucks. You can look at your boulevards, your grass boulevards. There's more divots in our grass boulevards. There's more garbage being left behind from accidents than ever before. And that has to do, has to do with the province taking them over, I strongly believe. We can't force anything anymore when it comes to tow trucks. They're run amok. They're doing whatever they want right across the city. And I think this is a part of it, where they're saying no, because essentially they could go and make a lot more money somewhere else, regardless of the contract that they have with the city. Because what are we going to do? There's nothing we can do about it. We're not going to revoke their license. They don't need the license in Brampton or through us anymore. So I don't know what the answer is, other than, we've asked the province to give us that means of licensing them back to us, and I believe we've asked them to do that, and I don't think they've said anything. So again, I'll ask for some kind of advocacy from the mayor to write the province to say give it back to us, or you deal with the issues that we're dealing with. You fix the boulevards, and it's tow trucks because they got the dualies going over. You see it all the time. I see it all the time, tow trucks using the turn lanes to get in front of traffic, sometimes going through reds, or the big thing is now I see tow trucks doing a U-turn on a red light. I don't know if they think that's legal or not, but something has to be done, and the province has made this mess, and they need to fix it ASAP. And I'm not giving anybody more money to do a job that they need to do. I know residents and like Councillor Santos, we've been inundated with calls just for people saying this snowstorm's coming. There's 4 cars parked on my street. They're still going to be here when the snowstorm starts. Sure enough, it starts. And staff's been great with the times that we say, hey, this needs to be taken care of, because for whatever reason, we had one resident email 1 o'clock in the morning saying that their driveway was being impacted by somebody that was parked on the street. And, we needed to get out, and staff did a fantastic job getting out, ticketing, towing. that vehicle, but, you know, you see it on every street. And correct me if I'm wrong, as of today, are you allowed to park on the street?
Through the chair, Councilor Palashi, not during a winter storm event.
Okay. And I counted 8 cars from I left my driveway to coming to work today. I counted 8 vehicles on 8 vehicles by the time I reached my first intersection. So, and then I stopped counting. Something needs to be done, for sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councilor Keenan, for bringing this forward.
Thank you very much, Councilor. Mayor Brown.
Well, thank you, Councillor Keenan, for adding this to the agenda. I was livid with the inability to remove cars that were obstructing our snow removal efforts. And we can't be the same approach going forward. The companies that refuse service should no longer be on our tow removal list. We need them to step up when there's a storm. And the notion that we be told they're not going to remove a car because there's snow around it, what do you think happens during a storm? There's snow. That's when we need them. We don't depend on these companies when it's beautiful weather out and it's convenient for them. We depend on them during a storm. I was inundated with complaints about cars that were obstructing the effort. You know, and for that individual that causes the entire street to miss their snow removal effort, they're ignorant to their neighbors. But there has to be consequence. If there's that one problem home on a street or a subdivision that is causing diminished service for everyone else, they're going to continue to act in that ignorant fashion if they feel there's no consequences. There has to be consequences for obstructing our ability to offer critical services. You know, that family that needs to get out for critical appointments, and they can't because of that ignorant behavior is wrong. And so I'd like the takeaway on this to be the companies that worked, and I know because I got complaints, I know which companies worked and which ones didn't. If they were refusing service, let's just say thank you. Obviously you don't want this work and you'll no longer be on our tow list. There is a ton of companies out there that want to work. We know that from our independent investigations, that we're ready to work. We need to expand the list to make sure we've got a broader list that can do this service. Public Works, I know you were going above and beyond, working 24/7, but this inhibited your ability to do your job. I know this was the largest storm in the largest dump in the GTA, and snow dump in 25 years. But this is a time for us to really revisit our policies and make sure that if this happens again, and it's only February, guaranteed we're going to have more snow to come, that we're better prepared. If we have another large snowfall in a week, I don't want to be in the same position. I'd also say, Councillor Keenan's done a ton of work, and Councillor Santos and Vasante, on these rooming houses. So some of these problem areas, if they think they can get away with, throwing all these cars on the street when there's a major weather event, once again, it allows this challenge we have in the city to persist. If we make an example of individuals that have this type of disrespectful behavior, there are so many benefits. One, it will alter behavior, and we're not going to see this in future if they can't get away with it, but it also really hold accountable some of these houses that have way more cars than they're permitted. No one's going to want to rent that house if they see their car being towed every time there's a winter storm. So to staff, my question is, how quickly can we make sure that we have a list of only companies willing to work when there's a storm? And how quickly does it take for us to add to this list?
Through to the mayor, based on the storm that we just had, we've already added 2 companies to our list. We can add as many as we need to add, but we also can be going out with a formal tender to put it into place, the service that we expect to be receiving. And that can happen as soon as we finish this council meeting today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to circle back to make sure we capture everything, I just want to make it clear, the city of Brampton does not pay the tow trucks. That's that fee is on the owner of the vehicle, correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Keenan, absolutely correct.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that maybe we're not getting the service because of maybe a tie-up on what we charge or what we allow them to charge. But realistically, we need the cars moved. They shouldn't be parked there. If it's a summer day, $300. If it's a winter day, $600, $1,000. Doesn't matter to us. That's going to teach people to keep them off. As the mayor says, hit them in their pocketbook, and that's how we're going to get the change that we need. Knowing that we're going out, presuming that you already said, Marlon, we're going out for a new tender that'll really focus on the services we need. A motion's not necessary.
No, it's not. We can take that as direction to staff.
Okay, and then I just want to make sure that when you do go out, you prioritize Brampton businesses for the tow trucks to be one of the things that you put inside the tender. I think that if they're a business in Brampton, tow trucks in Brampton, we have a lot of them that they'll be happy to clear our streets. So I just want to make sure that you capture that. And then you can add to the list as we need for the rest of the season, correct?
Through the chair, correct.
Okay, and if anyone doesn't respond, move them from the list. That's all from me. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
And just one clarification, not just businesses in Brampton, but also their pound yards has to be in Brampton as well.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. Councillor Keenan, I see no further speakers, so we'll move on to the remainder of our agenda today. Public question period. Do any members of the public, have they sent any questions in, Madam Clerk?
Through Chair, I'm not seeing any online.
Very good. And do any members here have any questions with regards to items so far covered today? I see none. So we'll move forward to the Community Services section, chaired by Councillor Santos. Everything was in consent, so we'll move forward to the Legislative Services section, also chaired by Councillor Santos. And we have a number of items, right? No, there is item 10.3.1 brought forward by myself and Mayor Brown.
All right, I missed that added item. We're now in legislative services. An item was added by Councillor Vicente regarding parking around masjids in the month of Ramadan. Councillor Vicente.
And thank you very much, Madam Chair. Looking for us to turn around this item very quickly in discussions that myself and Councillor Santos have had with leaders of a masjid that is in our area and also together with the mayor. For this particular masjid, staff know where they are located on James Potter. We implemented a very good solution a couple of years back that allowed them to have confidence in park on a section of James Potter, and the signage was actually changed to allow for parking. I believe it's between the hours of 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Prior to that, there was no signage, which of course may suggest that you could park for up to 3 hours. But to avoid possibility of parking infractions, but also to give them confidence to park during those times, we had that signage implemented, and it's been received very positively by the folks who attend that masjid. With the upcoming celebrations of Ramadan that start and go throughout the month of March, we're looking to expand the amount of parking along James Potter for wards 1 and 5. But I know that other councillors may have masjids in their areas where we may want to consider providing for some additional parking space on some of the more major streets, if that is possible. And so the motion would be that we ask staff to look into having additional parking during the month of Ramadan and for staff to come back with a report. And I know I've spoken with our commissioner on this for next week. And that's the motion.
Thanks so much, Councillor Vicente. And and before I hand it to the mayor, I just want to say that I was in that meeting yesterday with the residents requesting this particularly for Ramadan, and I realized that we just had a conversation about not allowing people to park on the street, especially during snowstorms. Rest assured that when speaking with the residents of this masjid, I did emphasize that, saying that if there is a snowstorm, there is no parking on the street, and they completely understood that. And we also emphasized the fact to avoid parking in the residential areas as much as possible, so they understood that as well. And we're also looking into accommodating and working with the school across the street to find a parking lot. So we're trying our very best to make this as a last resort, understanding we just had a conversation about illegally parking on the streets and how people don't like it. Over to you, Mayor Brown.
Thank you, Councillor Vasante, for bringing this forward. I do think we have a policy where we show discretion during major faith celebrations, with the caveat that if it interferes with a hydrant or emergency services or a major weather event, that wouldn't be applicable. But I would note, whether it's Christmas, when there's churches, you see cars parked where they shouldn't be. When we have major events at the Gajora, same thing, parking is everywhere, and we don't go and ticket during that finite time. The Christmas Day service is, a few hours on Christmas Day. I look at these Ramadan events, it's when fasting ends, it'll be, essentially from 6:30 to 7:30 during Ramadan. I hope that we're not going to have major winter events in March, but you never know. But I do think it would be great to see how we can accommodate these iftars happening at masjids during Ramadan in a manner that is consistent with safety, and would welcome us to show discretion for the Muslim faith like we have other faiths in the city for these significant events. That's part of who we are in Brampton. We celebrate all faiths and are proud of religious freedom.
Deputy Mayor Singh.
Just to try to be helpful, and you can not take the suggestion, but it looks like you're trying to, for this masjid in particular, look for additional parking spots. Would it be more helpful to have maybe staff do a meeting with them and show them the additional parking spots for the community, and then they don't have to report back, and within a week, I think we're looking at reporting back? Just suggesting that, because then the residents can ask directly, and there's no loss in communication under the report, and then they're trying to figure out the report, and you know what I mean? But I'll leave that to you.
Sorry, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thanks, Deputy Mayor Singh. Councillor Paleshi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thought everything was going kind of the way it should have been going. We moved a motion not too long ago to look at, specifically we were talking about Regan Road, but we wanted to open it up for all places of worship to have that opportunity for additional parking locations. That being said, and I just want to make it clear, there's no parking in residential streets before or after this. We're not allowing that. Just want to make sure that we're clear on that.
Through the chair to Councillor Paleshi, yes.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Paleshi. So there is a motion moved by Councillor Vicente, very specific on Ramadan, even though Mayor Brown, we already passed a motion before in the past on all significant religious holidays regarding this already. Okay, so we're going to do this again specifically for this. So staff to come back to investigate potential additional parking locations surrounding masjids during the month of Ramadan for February 26, 2025, next week. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. Next section is economic development. I believe everything in that section was already dealt with or put into consent, which brings us to, I apologize. Are there any questions from the public regarding the previous section on legislative services?
Through you, Chair, I'm not seeing any online.
Okay, and no questions from members of council, nothing in economic development. Any questions from the public on economic development? Nothing? Nope, thank you. Next is corporate services, chaired by Councillor Barr.
Thank you. Now we will go on to our corporate services section. We have 12.3.2 added by Councillor Paleshi regarding the third hospital.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was recently, I was talking to Mayor Brown. We've been working on the third hospital location, land, for a long time, all the way through the secondary planning process. It was identified back, 15, 20 years ago when they first started the Heritage Heights secondary plan. But, we do have, it kind of moved around throughout the 4,000 hectares, but we've now found a really good landowner that wants to be a part of it. So we did want to make this kind of more formal. So we put together a motion, been moved by myself, seconded by Mayor Brown. I'll just go ahead and read it. Whereas municipalities across the province of Ontario, including Hamilton, London, and the region of Waterloo, with populations smaller than the city of Brampton, are equipped with 3 or more hospitals to effectively deliver critical healthcare services to their residents. Whereas the city of Brampton, now the 3rd largest city in Ontario, is experiencing rapid population growth and a significant increase in demand for healthcare services, resulting in overcrowded hospital beds even after the construction of the second hospital, which is unable to meet the current and future demand. Whereas Brampton's healthcare infrastructure is significantly strained, with hospital bed availability per 100,000 residents marked below the provincial average, and the city has approximately 56% fewer hospital beds per person than the provincial average. Specifically, the province average is 220 hospital beds per 100,000 residents, while Brampton only has 96 beds per 100,000 residents, less than half of the provincial figure, highlighting a pressing need for increased healthcare capacity. Whereas Brampton's population is projected to grow by 300 to 400,000 new residents due to new housing targets, which will necessitate proportional increase in healthcare services, including at least 660 new hospital beds to meet the rising demand. Whereas securing a provincial planning grant for a third hospital would send a strong signal to Brampton residents that their healthcare needs are a priority, helping to address the current strain on hospital capacity. Therefore, be it resolved, Council advocate to the provincial government for the identification and acquisition of land necessary for the establishment of a third hospital in Brampton. And 2, Council requests the provincial government prioritize the planning and funding for third hospital, ensuring timely delivery of healthcare services to meet the needs of Brampton's residents and address the current strain on hospital capacity. There you have it.
Thank you, Councillor Paleshi. Seeing no other speakers on the list, we have a motion moved by Councillor Paleshi, seconded by Mayor Brown. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. Now we'll move on to our next item, which is 12.3.3, development changes. Is it development changes and charges in the office?
I didn't talk to legal, so I don't know if it's when we first talked about this. It was an in-camera discussion, so I don't know. Is it a public motion that followed it?
See the motion, maybe the changes to the motion.
Yes, there was a public motion that followed.
Okay,
that after.
so I'll start. So the direction that council was providing to staff, I don't think fully was grasped, and I'd like to make it extremely clear that we, for all office in the city of Brampton, that we remove development charges. All office. Not a percentage or anything like that, not a square footage, all office, dating back to when council first established the changes to the DC for office. And I think that really sends a clear message to the community, to the employment industry, that Brampton's serious about taking on some serious office jobs and growing those numbers. So I hope that after that, we'll be able to, and I really want to send the information to Build. Build is constantly calling to find out what we were doing with that, and so they really want to know. So happy to move that. I don't know if procedurally what has to be done, but I'll look to the clerk.
Through you, Chair, I wonder if we could just revisit the motion that was passed in early 2024. I think it does capture what you want. If we could just
I thought it did, but then
share that.
in talking to staff said that's not what.
So if we could have a look at it and
Okay.
see what exactly staff needs to be added for clarity. So that's it on screen.
That's exactly what you're saying.
When I talked to staff said they said 50,000 square feet or more. Like, that's not what it is. At first it was 50, then it was 20. I'm saying it's all. We're good? Yes.
That's the motion.
Maybe our commissioner, do you want to say anything?
I don't know.
The motion doesn't.
Through the chair, happy to speak to it, but I seek advice from the city solicitor only because the conversation and some of the staff advice was given in closed.
Yeah.
So I'd just look to the city solicitor to seek procedurally next steps.
Through you, Chair, I wonder if, rather than a new motion, if council could provide clarity, just with direction to council, that this motion was intended to.
The intent of this
the
that
intent-
motion
Yes.
was
intended for
100% of all
100%,
office
not limited.
to square footage or
Just-
anything like that. Yeah.
Would that help?
Through the chair, that would certainly provide clarity on the direction and intent of council, but I'd also take this opportunity to defer either to the Commissioner of Corporate Support Services or the Chief Financial Officer, just to inform council about next steps, because I would assume that there would have to be an amendment to the existing DC bylaw to implement this. That would probably involve public consultation and whatnot, but I'll defer to the treasurer.
And through the chair, there would be a requirement to amend the bylaw, and that's a process that we'd have to work through on that motion.
And I understand that, and I think that's why this was being done before the DC bylaw review, right? So that this motion was put in place before the adoption of the revised DC bylaw, I believe. That was the intent. When we were going through the review, this motion was put forward, so I don't want to have to now reopen a bylaw that the intent of this motion was tried to capture before that. But maybe what, because this is a committee, maybe what I can do is just have this sit here and ask staff to come back to council next week with what we need to do to make sure.
So through the chair, if I may, we can look at the previous motions, but I believe there's a criteria that we had before, and the criteria may have changed with this motion. So we just want to make sure we circle back to ensure the bylaws are accurately reflecting it, whatever changes we need to amend in that.
With the intent of what we're trying to do here today. Perfect, so next week. Excellent.
Thank you, Councillor Palashi. So would that be okay if we refer the discussion item to their next council meeting?
Based on staff, yeah,
Based
based
on
on
staff?
staff's request.
Thank you. We have a
It'll be
motion.
standing item.
Motion to move by Councillor Palashi to refer the discussion item to next council meeting. All in favor? Thank you. The motion carries. Our next item is 12.3.4, leave of absence. Councillor Palashi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was present during I was online during the councillor's leave of absence notice. And it was vague, and I wasn't sure what were kind of those next steps and what kind of the procedure is when a councillor does take a leave of absence. We've experienced it once before, but it was I felt like it was a different circumstance because this one was extremely vague in the email that was sent to both the clerk here at the city and the Region Appeal. I understand that there's still somebody working in the office. I wouldn't know who that person would be reporting to, because their person is no longer there. So I guess what I'd like to make sure is that, that person, and I know there's probably been discussions with the area councillor in the office, but what I'd like to make sure is that person, the emails that come in and go out through that person are managed by the other area councillor. And I don't know who's signing off on that person's timesheets, but maybe that has to be done through the other area councillor as well, just to make sure that there isn't any disconnect. It was kind of the worst possible time throughout a year to take the leave of absence because of the snowfall and the amount of emails that I'm sure, one councillor dealing with, and if Nevjit ever took a leave of absence, sorry, Councillor Barr ever took a leave of absence, I wouldn't allow her to, because, so I can't imagine how you're doing it, Councillor, and with your 10 kids as well, but I kudos to you. I think there should be a press release just thanking you for the amount of work that you've now been doing and taking care of, but I would like to understand if there isn't an SOP that says that needs to be done, then what I'd like to do is make sure that all emails that are coming into that office are going through, Councillor Keenan and his staff have the opportunity to continue to make sure that they work well for the residents of 3 and 4. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pelletier. Councillor Keenan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just for a little bit of clarity, my staff and Councillor Madero's staff have been working together throughout the last few weeks during this leave of absence. Nothing formally. I don't know if that's a need or a request as far as signing off on timesheets and so forth, so that I don't know, but we have been working together, and Councillor Madero's staff has been sharing things that are coming in with my staff currently. It's not formal, but it seems to be working right now, so I'm not sure what needs to be done, but thanks for bringing it up, Councillor Pelletier. But I do, Councillor Medeiros and I did have a conversation about how I would be dealing with this for the 30 days that he was away, so I just want to put that on the record. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Keenan. Councillor Pelletier, back to you.
Yeah, and sorry, and I forgot to mention, unfortunately, we were short at last regional council as well, because that person wasn't put in place. Which is unfortunate. I'd like to now then at least say, Deputy Mayor, are you okay to be the person that, so we formalize Deputy Mayor is now the person that goes to the region on the proxy, goes to the region on behalf of the councillor that's no longer here. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pelletier. Deputy Mayor Singh, you have the floor.
Yeah, normally he would, sorry, I don't want to name the councillor, but the email should have been sent to the regional clerk, so if the city could do that, and then I will take over that stuff, no problem.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Singh. Is there any direction needed? Yes, and we're just waiting for it. Yeah, we're just waiting for something to be formalized on the screen. Thank you. Seeing the direction on the screen, We have a motion moved by Councillor Pelletier. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. Our next item is for council question period. Do any members have any questions regarding this section? Seeing none, we'll move on. Now for public question period, Madam Clerk, do we have any questions online or in the public?
Through Chair, I'm not seeing any online.
Thank you.
We do have an open motion, even though all our closed session items were passed on consent. There's an open session motion following that when we get to that section.
Perfect. Thank you. Seeing none, we'll go on to our next next section. Do any members have any questions or comments regarding the referred matters list? Now we can deal with item 14, our public question period. Any questions at all from the clerk submitted online?
Through Chair, there's no questions online.
Perfect. So seeing that we have no items in our closed session, we can go on to, I guess it's the open report out from closed session. Madam Clerk? And we'll have it on the screen.
Through you, Chair, there is a motion on screen that needs to be addressed in open council, even though the closed session reports were approved on consent. It included the open session consideration of this motion.
Perfect. Thank you. Any members have any questions, concerns? Maybe we'll give a minute or two, let our council members read the motion. Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Pelletier. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. Our last item of business is item 16, adjournment. Committee is scheduled to meet Wednesday, March 19, 2025 at 9:30 a.m. I have a motion moved by Councillor Keenan to adjourn today's meeting. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.